March 3rd is Judgment Day. They got 24 hours to report.
Hey guys, Tony Denaro here. March 3rd. Wow. Reddit and YouTube are full of people talking about March 3rd. Some are absolutely stoked, some have questions, some are doubtful. Let's talk about some facts about what is going to happen on March 3rd. Where is this March 3rd theory coming from and what should you expect?
Expect about a 2-week time for them to start getting the transparency book cleaned up. March 3rd is Judgment Day. They got 24 hours to report. They got to clean up their books. It's very simple. Transparency. March 3rd. They got to clean up their book. 3rd comes. They got to report 24 hours after that.
All right, well, I think it's safe to say that in YouTube land, Lou is the genesis of the March 3rd theory. I'm not saying that Lou started this theory. It is rampant on Twitter and Reddit as well. But I'm going to use him as an example because I see other content creators on YouTube making videos referencing Lou's March 3rd date and making recommendations to you about what you should do based on March 3rd. The word of 2022 is transparency. The big question is, are transparency regulations going into effect in some fashion on March 3rd? Now I'm going to present you a couple minutes of due diligence. All of the links will be provided for you in the video descriptions because that is how we do it here. Absolutely no ambiguity, no trust me bro stuff. Everything is going to be there for you to look up yourself if you wish to. Now, that being said, if I miss something, by all means, drop it in the comments below. I'm happy to learn if I made a mistake, if there's an omission, if there's an error. Let me know in the comments down below. The purpose of this video is to share with you my due diligence, my opinion, and then we can have a discussion going forward from there.
On the 3rd, they better get their books clean. And on the 4th, they're going to have to report. So going forward, that world is gone.
Okay, I gave you guys this link before in a previous video I did on SEC regulations. It comes from reginfo.gov, and I just want to show you guys that all of the SEC regulations that we have been looking at, that they have been talking about, are still in the proposed rule stage. There are almost 50 of them, and as you can see here in the second column, they are all still listed as proposed rules. We can go over here to sec.gov and see all of the proposed rules as well, including the ones that they recently talked about in the past couple of SEC Open Commission meetings. There's also a tab that you can click on up at the top to see what is in the final rule status. And unfortunately for us at this time, there are no transparency rules that are in the final rule status.
This is it, okay? And I'm saying this is it in the capacity of like, if this thing doesn't run within the time frames that I'm talking about, then there's nothing to talk about anymore because this is no longer a stock play. This is the stock fraud. And this is something where people better fucking, when it climbs, you do what you got to do.
There are a lot of transparency regulations on the books for this year. It's easy to get confused. No big deal. Let's talk about the ones that are in the proposed list and what the status of them is really quickly. You can see here on sec.gov in the proposed rule list the exact status of these rules. For example, the one that we recently talked about, the amendments to Form PF, has comments due March 21st. You can see here at the top, shortening the securities transaction settlement cycle is out for comments until April 11th. How about this one from January 26th, the amendments to Exchange Act Rule 3B-16, the regulation ATS for ATSs that trade U.S. government securities. This rule is a little more difficult to track down because this one has been discussed by the SEC for well over a year now. Now, you could put this rule number in the Federal Register and search for it, or you could put the title of the rule in the Federal Register and search for it. Let's see what we come up with. Unfortunately, searching by the rule number comes up with nothing, so let's take the second step. If we put the title of the rule in, we come up with the very first time this went out to the Federal Register for comments, which was December 2020, about 14 months ago. We can see here that this one is still in the proposed rule stage and that it has a date of April 0, 2022 for the second notice of proposed rulemaking, NPRM. Since it is a little bit unclear what exactly is the status of this rule, we go to Google and come up with a host of different legal sites that are covering this for their broker clients. And in this article from February 15th, 2022, they note that there is a 30-day comment period on the rule once it is published in the Federal Register. However, as they note here in the highlighted section, The proposal as of the date of this law flash has not been published in the Federal Register. So I think it's safe to assume that this rule also is not going to be implemented on March 3rd. It hasn't even entered the Federal Register for new comments.
I see some posts. What's going to happen if March 3rd comes and there's no squeeze? And what is Lou going to say? Well, I said you're going to be fucked, because at the end of the day, you're fucked, I'm fucked. Because if you could bypass transparency, if you can go undetected with blockchain tracking everything.
With blockchain tracking everything, yes, Robot Godzilla, Project Ion, BSTX is what we're talking about. What exactly is blockchain tracking? What is a blockchain exchange? Is it happening next week, next month, anytime soon? BSTX is the company that the SEC has approved to be the first blockchain exchange. And we can see here, reading from their Twitter, the SEC has signed off on BSTX corporate filings. BSTX expects to launch in the second or third quarter of 2022. Again, we're not talking March 3rd for the blockchain implementation. And let's talk very briefly about what exactly is this. Is it going to massively change our world starting in a few months? I will put a link to the BSTX website in the video description so you can read all the FAQ and their press releases and learn a little bit about what is this exchange going to mean to you. But let me give you a quick recap if you don't want to do all that reading. In a nutshell, BSTX is going to be an alternate exchange that operates on the blockchain, and it will offer T+1 and eventually T+0 trades. Unfortunately, this does not mean that when it's implemented that the entire stock market is transitioning over to the blockchain. I will do a more in-depth video for you on BSTX. I'm just waiting for them to get back to me on a couple of questions that I had. But suffice to say, it's an alternate exchange, and it's going to be one that you can trade on if you want to do T+1 or T+0 trades, and the other party also wants to do the same. What you do need to know that it's not going to be implemented across the entire stock market in Q2 or Q3 of 2022. Again, it's an alternate exchange. Now, down the road, I would love to see everything move to the blockchain. I'd love to see everything go to T+1 or T+0. We are years away from getting there, my friends.
Then they really define like science and math and logic and everything. And if they're doing this with the FBI and the DOJ all over them, that will be beyond anything that anybody could have imagined 100%. Now, somebody said, well, what Lou will do is when that happens, he'll tell everybody we got fucked and tell people to sell off. No, I won't, because I never told you fuckers to buy or to sell. So that's just kind of fucking stupid.
So to wrap this all up, what do we have here? This has kind of been all over the map on YouTube. A couple weeks ago, Lou was saying that if nothing happened by March 3rd, we got a stock fraud on our hands. And more recently, he has said that if nothing happens by March 3rd, he's not telling you to sell. And that is good, because as far as transparency goes, as far as I can find doing my due diligence, there is nothing that is going to be happening on March 3rd. Again, if I'm wrong, hit me up with the comments and let me know where to go look, and I'll do an update for you. That is what I've got for you today. Hopefully you found this somewhat educational and informative. I am Tony Denaro. I'd like to thank you for watching, and if you got value out of today's video, I'd like to ask you to please buy and hold that subscribe button, and I will see you on the next video.